What is up, Facebook Live? Hopefully you are having an amazing day. Let me see if I can get this set up right. As people are tuning in, glad to see you. Happy Saturday. Welcome. Love to know where you're tuning in from and 3 things you're grateful for as you tune in. Hopefully there are people out there. I realize it's Saturday in the afternoon. People are out probably having fun or watching sports or doing something interesting. Welcome. Today we're talking about, can you change your nature? Meaning, if you don't like the way you always or naturally go about things, can you adjust that? And this has been a question that's popped up a lot of times from clients, from friends, from people at events where they've raised their hand and say, hey, Danielle, nice to see you. I'm a naturally introverted person. Can I be more extroverted? I'm a naturally quiet person. Can I be more outgoing and outrageous? And the truth is, you 100% can. So if anyone out there, and this is something you struggle with, or you know someone who struggles with this, and they're constantly trying to get themselves to be a certain way that they're not, please tag them in this, share this with them, make sure that they see this. So the very first piece you got to think about when you're thinking about your nature is, what is your nature? And if you're watching this, I'd love to know, what do you feel your nature is? And your nature is just how you go about life. Are you easygoing? Are you outgoing? Are you more introverted? Are you very, very easily excited about stuff? Are you passionate about things? Are you determined about stuff? What is your personal nature of how you take on life? How you take on life at work, how you take on life at home. And what's interesting for a lot of people out there, Malcolm says, why would you want to? It's who you are. Here's the interesting part, Malcolm. That is the very first step. If you want to help someone actually change their nature, they have to actually learn to appreciate the one they have. So what's fascinating, there's a lot of people out there who don't like the way they naturally go about things. There's people who do things and they're so fast to go through them, they look back and go, dang it, I wish I would take my time and think it through before just doing stuff. There's other people who sit down and take so much time thinking it through. They're like, dang, I wish I could just take action and not sit here and think about it so much. There's other people who are very outgoing and sometimes they wish they were a little bit more quiet. So there's lots of people out there, and what Malcolm's saying is, why would you want to change who you are? That's who you are. And what's interesting is many times people have found who they are isn't getting them the results they want in life. And that's an interesting phenomenon. They're like, hey, I'm cool with who I am. I'm just a guy or a gal, but I don't like the results that my nature produces. Or they have someone around them or an environment they're in that their nature doesn't get the results needed in that environment. An example, a very introverted person who's great with details and facts, who likes to ask a ton of questions, who likes to always be really, really, really correct about whatever is going on, putting them in a sales position where you have to act on your toes, you have to know the answers, you have to act quick, memorize stuff quickly, adjust quickly, always be on your toes, they're not going to do well there. Now, what's interesting is sometimes we get them as clients saying, I dream of being a salesperson and I want nothing more but to learn how to sell. Help me. And in that specific situation, the very first thing is we got to get them to appreciate who they are. So you're spot on with the first step. And appreciate is not just accept it, not just give up on thinking anything else is possible. It's just acknowledge the fact that you do have natural strengths and identify what those strengths are, identify where those strengths are useful, identify where you really perform or excel because of those strengths in your life. And once you've identified those strengths, once you've really appreciated them and acknowledged them, figure out how to use those strengths in what it is you're trying to do. That's the first step. Second step is, there's a state, and if you're familiar with my dad's work, physiology-focused language, there's a state that when you are in that state, if you're normally, your nature is soft and very quiet, there's a certain state you go into where you're loud and outrageous. And if you're very loud and outrageous, there's a certain state you go into where you're very quiet and calm. And so the next piece is identifying what is the physiology, focus, and language, or what is the state of being that goes around this element that you want to tap into. If you want to tap into more outrageousness, more passion, more determination, what state? Meaning, what do you have to focus on to get into that state? How do you have to move your body? And how do you have to What do you have to say to yourself to bring that side of yourself to life? David says, nature is where you live, how you go about things. Yes, you can change where you live. Move. Then you need to find yourself visiting where you left, especially early on. You need to get yourself rooted in your neighborhood and community. Absolutely. So very similar reference here. And by nature, what we're talking about in this specific conversation is we're talking about the natural way, the normal way, the default way you go about things. Another way to look at this, Malcolm, nature is much deeper than habit or personality. It's who you are at a soul level. You can change habits. You can orient your personality in a new direction, but nature is who you are. So here's what's interesting. That's the debate. Because there's some people out there, and I've met many of them, believe it or not, who don't like their nature. They say, my nature, how I show up, Sebastian, nice to see you, my natural tendencies, my ways I normally go about things, get me picked on, get me pushed out of work, get me fired from jobs, get me out of relationships because the other person doesn't want to deal with me. Their nature, their natural tendencies, the natural habits and patterns they have, whether it's the way they communicate, the way they treat people, the way they act, all those different pieces of who they are naturally cause them to not get into the environments or the results they're going after. That's the challenge. So to say that's just who you are at your soul level, get over it and deal with it, is one response, but it gets them arrested. It does. It's just their nature. It's just how they naturally would handle something, how they naturally react to someone, how they naturally talk to someone. And it's a very fascinating situation. I've helped people through this, and I'm just sharing some things that worked. And the first part is to get them acknowledge and appreciate parts that are useful. Because even if your nature is to be pushy and blunt and aggressive with people, and that gets you in fights, and that gets you in trouble, and that gets you kicked out of stuff, that is useful somewhere. And when we can find where that's useful, that's the first place to start. If you're quiet and very timid and you just like to follow directions, that's useful somewhere. You just have to find it. If you're very fast-paced or slow-paced, Thomas, nice to see you. I am having a wonderful day. If you whatever your nature is, it's useful somewhere, and the very first step is to find where it's useful. Jamie, nice to see you, sir. Hopefully you're getting big somewhere. I'm catching up to you. I'm at 13 this morning, so I'm getting bigger. I'm almost up to you. Let's see. So your nature, this very first part, is where to start, and how to appreciate and acknowledge where it's useful somewhere in your life. From there, it's then saying, okay, what is the state that I'm trying to get into? And I think it was Malcolm that said, the state, your habits, your patterns, the way you show up, we can get you into a more resourceful or more useful state in the areas you need to be. So if you need to go to work and be in a different state than what you normally are in, we can get a state locked in at work where you're this intense, focused person or a quiet, mellow person. And so that's Jairek, complete with hopefully go Michigan, go Blue. I want to be like you when I grow up. Hey, I'm trying to catch up to you, man. So the piece there is the next piece to figure out what state you need to activate when going to this place that you need to activate a different part of who you are. And the truth is, it's another part of who you are. Warren, nice to see you. Hello, sunny South Africa. So it's another part of who you are. It's not becoming someone else. It's not disassociating from who you normally are. It's saying, hey, I'm going to activate another piece of who I am in my mind or body, and I'm going to bring that side of me to life. Now, the truth is, you might not be very strong at this other part of who you are because you spent so many years in your nature as this one part of you, part A, that part B isn't really that strong. So you got to practice. And this is where when you go home and you say, listen, I wish I could activate myself and make decisions quickly. Now, I'll tell you the truth. There's a time in your life, there's a place in your life, there's an area of your life where you feel comfortable making powerful decisions, and there's a decisive state you go into. There's a very specific physiology you use when you stand that way or sit that way, you activate the decisiveness in your body. There's a very specific set of language you use. There's a very specific focus you have in mind, and instantaneously you activate. And you're able to decide and be on your toes and be very in the moment and not sit back and think so much. On the reverse side, if you're such a fast-acting person, there's a state you can go into or a different hat you can wear where all of a sudden you can activate the very thoughtful, logical side of yourself that's very detailed and very specific. And I'm guessing there's a certain area of your life. For example, let's say you took someone who is rapid pace, big thinking, all over the place, just go, 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 go. And all of a sudden you get them to sit down and say, listen, your baby girl or your baby boy's life depends on you figuring out the details of this situation. By focusing on that meaning, and by being in a very specific location without any distractions, and by being in a pumped up state and passionate and centered, we can get them to do hours worth of solid accounting and numbers and digits and activate that side of who they are. So it comes down to the state and the environment you're in to activate this side of who you are. Ahmed, good to see you. Lorena, nice to see you. Hello. So the part that we're talking about is just how do you change it? And first is you have to acknowledge and accept where it is. Second, you have to identify a state and environment you can use to activate and sustain this. Now, here's what's interesting. Your nature is what you're going to eventually come back to. So part A is what you're going to come back to over time. So what you need to realize is you can go to part B and shift gears and all of a sudden activate this other side of yourself, but eventually you're going to come back to the natural side of who you are. Now, one thing that's really interesting, depending on how you look at these things, Eric, nice to see you. Checking in from London, stuck in traffic. Stay focused. David, your nature, true beautiful self is not likely when you see, even seen. You get to... Said, I didn't see David. So this is what's interesting. There's people that these people go to that vibrate at a different level of consciousness. Consciousness meaning they care, and if you know the spiral dynamics, they elevate it like a green, or they elevate at a level that sees this holistic, energetic view, and they have a very spiritual energy view of life, and the fact that we are not physical human beings. Tim, what's up, man? We're not physical human beings. We're the perception of who our particles are vibrating together. And science backs that up and shows it's true. The people who struggle with this are very logical people who are incredibly intelligent, who, if you took a DISC assessment, if you're familiar with that, they're people who generally fall into like high S and C categories for the most part because they're very logical people. They're people who naturally become accountants, engineers, investors, people who are good with numbers, like details. Elise, nice to see you. So those people struggle with this because many times they're put in situations where they wish they were more outgoing. They wish they were more interactive. They wish they could think on their toes. They wish they were more quick pace. Rich, nice to see you. And what's interesting is why they struggle with this is because the DISC test, it's a personality test. It's worth taking. If you Google DISC assessment, you can get them online. My dad has them for free you can take if you want to get to know what yours is off his website. If you go to TonyRobbins.com, then you go under resources, go down to DISC assessment, you can take it for free, and it'll give you a full, I think, 30-something page of feedback and profile on who you are and where your strengths are naturally in your personality, where your weaknesses are, and what you can do to strengthen the areas that you're naturally not strong at. So when we're talking about changing your nature, we could refer directly to the DISC assessment. If you're a high S and C, can you get stronger at being a D and I? Absolutely. It depends on appreciating your high S and C, activating your D and I when needed, and that's done by the state and environment you're in. The other piece is realizing that you need to refuel. And on that specific DISC assessment, each letter has a way that they refuel. A high D, which is a driver, they're very, they want fast-paced, short, quick to the point answers. They need physical activity to regenerate. A high I, they need time with people and community to regenerate. A high S, they need nothing time, where they are just sitting around doing nothing to regenerate. And a high C, I believe they need personal time with just themselves. If I remember right, I might be wrong on the C. But with that, what you need to do is if your nature is not where you're at, you need to go back to your nature and say, what is my way of refueling? So if you're a high D and you're going to get yourself to focus on the facts and slow down and be more specific and accurate, then you need to go have some physical time to regenerate who you are and reactivate your nature at some point during the day. If you're a high S and you're going to get yourself to be very decisive and fast and quick and on your toes and go, you're going to need some nothing time somewhere in your day to regenerate. And I found that most people, when they try to get out of their nature, when they try to get out of their core area that they start with, the part they struggle with is they forget to have time to refuel. So they literally drain themselves till they're completely out, and then they just feel flat the rest of the day, and they have trouble even focusing, they have trouble showing up, they have trouble really applying themselves. So at that point, it would make more sense to go and do something that naturally refuels you. Depending on your personality type, each one has a very specific way of activating it. I actually have a friend. Her name is Laura. Let me see if I can grab her website real quick. She's an expert on the DISC assessment. Let's see. Tim, so I was 90% D, but I took the test 3 times, and I adjust seasonally based on my business season. Is that normal? So we had a friend of mine come and do a whole course for us. Let me pull up her slides. And she says what happens is if you remember, there was a natural way of who you are, and then there was an adapted way of who you are. She said the natural way that who you are will tend to show up the same no matter what's going on in your life. The adjusted or the adapted way will change depending on where you are, your mood, how you feel, your environment, and everything else that's going on. So she said that'll change normally. Let me pull up the slides real quick and see if I can grab her website. It's worth visiting. Slides, what week was that? We had her come and do a very special presentation in week 6 of our performance coach training program. Let's see, is this it? Here we go. So she did all kinds of stuff for us. LMTworthtalkingabout.com. I think that is her site. That was a long site. LMT. Let me just double check and make sure that is it. That is not it. A friend of mine, her name is Laura, and she is rock solid on the DISC. If you want to look her up on Twitter or LinkedIn, it's Laura, and then her last name is Treonze. And if you look her up, her email is laura@lmtworthtalkingabout.com. If you email her, if you're interested in the DISC or interested in learning more about your personality and your style, she is a rock star when it comes to understanding that assessment and how to apply it with your team, how to apply it with yourself, and how to naturally understand yourself at the deepest level. We do a basic training on it. We help our clients understand it so they understand where they're at. But she came in, and she's the person we brought in to teach our coaches in our coach certification course. Yep, there you go. So she's a rock star. What's up, Preston? She's a rock star when it comes to that DISC assessment and really understanding how to activate yourself. Part of her focus is going into organizations and helping a whole organization understand it, understand each other, and really activate each other at the highest level. So when we're talking about adjusting your nature, one thing she said that's really interesting to watch for, and she goes, this is where people have the biggest energy drain every day and they don't realize it, is when, let's say they're a 90% D normally, and their adjusted goes to like a 40% D, that 50% point drop there, or 50% drop. What happens is when they drop so much so quickly, it's so against their nature that it naturally drains them of energy throughout the day. So she said if you have taken the DISC assessment, one thing you want to watch is the gaps that exist between your nature and your adapted style. And if there's a big gap, you want to pay attention that that's where a natural energy drain would come in for you. And you want to figure out how to make sure you're constantly regenerating and refueling to ensure that it doesn't just completely flatline you mentally or emotionally throughout a day. Really interesting. So going back to the very beginning, for anyone who missed it, if you're trying to adjust your nature, if you don't like the normal way you go about things, the first is acknowledge and appreciate the way that you do go about it. Figure out where it's useful, figure out what's great about it, figure out what you appreciate about it. Second piece, figure out based on what you're trying to get yourself to do. So we gave the example of a very soft-spoken, slow-paced person trying to get into sales. It's aggressive, fast-paced, quick going. Figure out the state you need to be in, the physiology, the focus, and the language, meaning what do you have to focus your mind on, how do you have to move your body, and how do you have to activate yourself to get yourself into that powerful, fast-paced, quick-talking, quick-thinking state for sales. Figure out how to get yourself there, practice that regularly so you build it like a muscle, you get strong. After you've built it and gotten strong and gotten used to it, the next piece is schedule time to refuel in what your nature refuels. We use the DISC assessment as an example. Each main category of the different letters, that's 4 letters there, has a natural way it refuels. So if you're an S and you try to become a D, you want to be able to go back to your S and have nothing time to refuel. If you're a D and you try to get yourself to slow down and be more specific and accurate, you need to go back to physical activity to regenerate. So those steps combined together become very useful to not only learn how to use your greatest strength and acknowledge it, learn how to tap into other areas that you can become strong in, but then go back and refuel to make sure you have tons of energy to continue moving forward. Tim, best way to refuel is a D. So D's naturally refuel with physical activity. Physical activity is what brings a D back to life. So working out, doing yoga, taking a run, lifting weights, physically getting your body activated regenerates your energy. S's, they regenerate with nothing time. So quiet time, nothing time, literally physically just being and being quiet. Let me bring it up one more time and I'll tell you. I's regenerate with people time. Let's see, disc, tools, summary. So social time is how an I regenerates. Physical activity is how a D regenerates. Nothing time is how an S regenerates. And a C, private time. So time by themselves is how a C regenerates. If you don't know what your personality is and you don't know what letter you best adhere to, my dad has it for free on his site, TonyRobbins.com. Go into resources, go down a little. I say disc assessment. You can take it for free right online from their website, and it'll give you a 36-page assessment of who you are and how you show up. Yep. So you're a high D, Tim, and you've been drained for the past 2 years. You cut your gym time out completely. That's where you'll refuel. So your natural personality will regenerate when you have physical activity, i.e. the gym. So when you schedule in your gym time, it'll bring you right back to life as a person. So you might want to schedule that in regularly. You're welcome. And it seems silly, but these little tests can tell you some things about yourself and help you really activate. Anyways, if you know someone who struggles with this, if you know someone who doesn't like their nature, who's trying to make an adjustment, please share this video with them. Also, if you found this useful, mark Monday planner, check. Let's see, if you know someone who needs this or you found it useful, please click share, help us spread this out. David, somewhat fair to make the assumption that if the activities for... Yeah, it could be. I always recommend taking the test. I recommend Dad's site because it's free. That's the easiest. If you want to take it, you can go to Laura's website. I think she has it's like $100 or something. You can buy it, take it, and then she'll go through it with you. There's tons of other websites. You can buy it anywhere between $30 to $100 per test, per assessment. It's a really, really, really great tool to use. We use it with a lot of our clients within their organization. Well, whenever I have a CEO or an executive that I'm working with or a team manager, we'll always have them take it and have their whole team take it. That way, all of a sudden, they can clearly understand the strengths, the weaknesses, the communication styles of everyone in their environment, and they can help everyone in the environment understand each other so that there's not feelings hurt, there's not frustration, there's not tension between the team. All of a sudden, there's a way that says, hey, if I want to communicate with them, I know to be quick, to the point, summarize it, straight on. If I'm going to communicate with them, I know I have to make sure they feel that I'm accurate and specific and detailed in my responses. And you could only imagine when you take two different personalities, put them in the same room, one person's concerned with the big picture, the bottom line, quick and to the point. The other person's concerned with the details, the fine lines in between, and all the little specific elements of it. They drive each other nuts when they're both trying to run a company together, or they're working together on the same team, wondering why both of them are trying to pull opposite directions all the time. So this is an outstanding way to instantaneously understand them, help them better communicate and understand each other, and help them be more effective overall. So highly recommend it. Definitely worth checking it out. Anyways, hope you all have an amazing Saturday. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you quickly if there's anything out there. If you know someone who struggles with not necessarily loving their own personality or their own nature, please have them check this out and use those 3 steps with them. First, have them acknowledge it. Second, have them appreciate it and see where it is useful of how they naturally go about. And then follow those other steps. Warren, thanks for another brilliant, informative session. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Time to share some more. Yes. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to go have some family time and some fun time, and we will see